Yeah, welcome once again to today's class, and I hope you had a lovely day yesterday. As actually a new task has actually been dropped for you guys, and you have to log into your LMS dashboard to see your new task. I should have informed you guys earlier, but I didn't. A new task have actually been dropped, and you can check it out on your LMS dashboard, and you'll be making use of Bootstrap basically to build. So in today's class, we'll be looking at what is called Tailwind CSS. And Tailwind CSS is also similar to Bootstrap, but for Tailwind, it's actually flexible. You don't need to. What Tailwind is a utility first CSS framework for rapid building and building custom user interfaces. And it's also for faster deployment development, responsive design, and utility, and is a utility first. It's a utility first CSS framework. What is a utility first CSS framework? It is to build complex components from small single multipurpose unit class. So for Tailwind CSS, you are just basically writing in class names, and you are building one after the other, in the sense that each style you'll be building, you don't need to start picking up a style component as against Bootstrap. Tailwind also has component based, but for now we'll just be focusing on the style part of it, where you just have to pick the style you want to use and embed it into your code. And Tailwind also makes use of responsive mobile first approach, but sometimes you can build for tablets. You can build for a large screen first, then you now move down to a smaller screen. Sorry, please, can you hear me? Am I audible enough?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So for customization, also as against Bootstrap, which has just minimal customization, Tailwind has full customization basically. You can customize fully on Tailwind as against using their own custom classes. And we'll see that as we go on into this class, as basically we'll be building this landing page. I built this landing page in Tailwind CSS. Everything built right here, from the navigation to everything right here was actually built with Tailwind CSS. Nothing was added from between. Everything are all built from scratch with Tailwind CSS. As you can see, it's actually hosted somewhere. So let's continue. And also for performance, it's also one thing that makes Tailwind also good, because it removes redundant code. Unlike Bootstrap, sometimes you just have to copy some components which you don't actually need the styles, and Bootstrap is much tedious than Tailwind CSS. Basically, Bootstrap is very tedious to use. I find ever since I've been for like 2 years plus now, 2023, since I got indoctrinated Tailwind CSS, I have not I have written less CSS, less custom CSS, and everything I have been building ever since then has been on Tailwind CSS, because it gives me the flexibility on how to use it. I can customize it to make it fit what I want. I am flexible with it. That's the basic word for it. I am really flexible with Tailwind CSS, and I don't have to start cracking my head on, okay, what do I want to do next? Once I see the styles I want to use, once I see the style I want to build with, what I simply just have to do is go to Tailwind documentation and see the style that I want to use, and I make use of it. So we can always go to from the documentation. As you can see, like I've always said, for you to be able to make use of all these frameworks, all these CSS frameworks and the like, one of the best focal points for you to just go to is the documentation. Once you go to the documentation, everything you need is right in the documentation. You don't have to start um, scrolling through different pages, trying to flip through the internet to see everything you need basically for Tailwind CSS. It's all in the documentation. So from the installation and how do you install Tailwind CSS, just like Bootstrap, you have to just install it using the CDN Tailwind CSS.com. So as you can see, for basic HTML, what they ask us to do is you copy, this is the script tag, you copy the script tag, which actually uses script. Tailwind actually uses script as against the style that we always use. So basically what I'm simply going to do is I'm just going to copy this. This style, this script style, which is what is going to be styling our CSS basically. And I paste it right here. And once I save this, have I gone live? I think I am live, but there is nothing displayed yet. So I'm just going to copy this text. I'm just going to copy this H1 text that is right here to be sure that our Tailwind is rightfully connected. So let's paste that right here. And as you can see, our Tailwind is fully configured. I don't need to download any file. I don't need to make use of anything basically. What I just need is the link that I want, which is the link up there, and I embed it into the head of my HTML. With the embedment that I've done into the head of my HTML, what I simply just have to do is sorry guys, just give me some few minutes. Give me some few minutes, please. All right, thank you very much. So, I'm so sorry for the break. So we just, as you can see for Tailwind CSS, you can see I simply just had to copy a link from the Tailwind documentation, and everything I need to do is right there. So everything you just need to use for Tailwind CSS is basically just right there. Everything you just need to do is you copy the CDN link. After copying the CDN link, you paste them directly into your code, and you are using it already. No need to start thinking of, oh, how am I going to do this? Do I need to copy a component? And it's very easy and straightforward to use. As I mentioned earlier, sorry, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
You can see my screen. Which of my screen can you see? Okay. Can you see my Visual Studio Code?
Yes,
we can see both of them.
All right. So I just wanted to be sure. So as I mentioned, this is what we'll be building into this class. We'll be building this Nextflow website, and we'll be using Tailwind from scratch. And I'm sure you guys will be excited about this. And I'll be using some of Tailwind class one after the other. That means I have to go to the documentation, switching from each of the screens after another to be sure of, okay, which of the components am I using basically. So, but for easy use of the documentation, I actually do switch. Like I mentioned earlier, Tailwind also has some components. You can also use Tailwind to build components basically. As you can see, they have a component section. What you just simply have to do is you copy the component you want to use, you embed it into your code, and you style it to what you want to fit properly. That is how the component, but for me, I don't think I've used the component over time. What I simply just use, I style it to my own taste. Like I like to be dynamic in my own styling, in the sense that I don't use their components. I get my style from my Figma design, and I start coding them using Tailwind from scratch. And you can see they are also paid. Some of those components that you'll be using for Tailwind are actually paid. So there is no need trying to pay for a comp, but I'm not saying components are bad also. Components are actually good because one of the major things it does for you is it makes your work very, very easy. And also another thing with Tailwind CSS is that you can also define your own custom classes. Like, okay, there are some colors you want to use, some RGB colors you want to use that are not fully defined by Tailwind CSS. What, as you can see in the documentation, trying to add your custom style, what you simply have to do is you go to the script, just at your edge session, you don't need an external CSS for this also, but in some cases, I've always advised you that you have to make your style compact in the sense that your HTML is on a particular place and your CSS is also in a particular place. But for this, we won't be doing that since I'm just using this for example. So we have the style. I just have my style with type, and I have a text. As you can see, let me just copy this directly from here instead of me trying to type it out, because for Tailwind, I don't type anything out. Basically, for Tailwind CSS, I don't type anything out. I just copy and paste. And yes, we have our color. So if I want to change our text color, what I simply have to do is I just do text of Clifford, and by the time we check it out, it would convert our text to red. So that is how easy it is to use Tailwind CSS. That is how easy it is to use Tailwind CSS. Yeah, Tailwind Tailwind makes your work very easy, very fast, very smooth as against Bootstrap. If you can remember what I said in the Bootstrap class, I said that Bootstrap is sort of rigid. It does not give you the flexibility as you would want with Tailwind CSS. But with Tailwind CSS, you are very flexible. You can flex your muzzle at any point as you want. Everything you just need to do is define everything you need at the head of your HTML, and you are good to go. But our HTML head will be full with so many style. Well, as you can see, I think Joshua, you are mixing it up. You can see when I embedded our Tailwind CSS, I didn't use a style. I used a script. Be noteful of that. I'm using a script and not a style, as against what we use with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is actually a style. And also one thing you should know with Tailwind CSS is Tailwind CSS does not have any JavaScript embedded with it. What you simply just have to do is, what you are simply doing is, we are actually making use of the CSS style, which is the major focus. So we are not focusing on the JavaScript aspect of it at all. So let's continue. So I made mention that we will be building this website, and let's start from there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Tailwind documentation, and I am more flexible using the version 2 documentation for my style guide. Actually, I'm very much flexible because that's actually straightforward and I can use it for anything I want to. So this is the version 2 documentation. I'm not using it for the installation. I'm just using it to get my styles one after the other. And the first style I want to do is, I want to get, as you can see, our background color for this is like, I think it's like subtle gray. Let me check. I think I have a color picker here. I think I have a color picker on my extension. Yeah, I have a color picker. So let me open up my color picker so I can get the right colors for this website. No, I need the color picker. No, color picker. I'm coming. Let me pick my color picker, except I have uninstalled it. Yeah, I think I've uninstalled it basically. But sometimes as a developer, you need to have something called color picker because it's not every time you would have access. It's not going to be every time you have access to Figma design that you would make use of. But according to what you can see here, we can see that our background up there simply looks like it's gray. So let's go to Tailwind documentation and use for the background color. Let's look for background color. Background color. So this is background color. So you can see how do you make use of background color in Tailwind CSS. What you simply just have to do is you do a BG green or the color you want, and depends on the opacity there is. Let's now start from here. So based on our body, so we have a class on our body, which is class of BG dash gray dash 900, which is going to be very thick. That's like a thick, that's a very thick gray right up here. And we also have our text, which is green. Our text, which is white. Sorry, I said green. Our text are all white right there. And I think with that, let's go to our browser. And you see everything we have right here is grayed out all together. Everything we have right here is all grayed out. So let's continue. Let's continue. So the next line that will now be defining our navigation. So I'm also going to be using a semantic tag for that nav. And with this, I'm actually going to be building something called a responsive navigation, so that at any point in time when we get to a smaller screen, it actually has to drop to a certain size that you are going to use. So when I was making mention of responsiveness, all you simply have to do is you target a small screen, and when I was explaining Tailwind CSS to you, it's actually mobile first, then you move it to the large screen on its own. So the first thing we are going to do is our navigation bar is going to be fixed. It's going to have a position of, let's also check out position. Let's check out position here. Let's check position. Position. So you can see the various positions that we have. We have static, we have fixed, we have absolute, we have relative, we have sticky. So this is how they look basically. As you can see, for fixed, you can see everything you'll be scrolling over will be fixed, will be scrolled underneath what is fixed basically. So let's start with that. So we have our class. We have our class equals fixed a top of, I think you are familiar with this, a top of 0, a width of full. So when you are defining a width in Tailwind CSS, let's check out the width. Let's check out the width. When you are defining a width in Tailwind CSS, there are different ways of defining a width, which starts from 0 to 1 pixel. As you can see, the various classes of width that we have. And so if you don't want to start defining, if you want a width of 100%, what you just need to do is just give it a width of full. If you want a width of screen, you give it a width of W screen. So it's not you have to start defining width 100%, but it gets to some particular point in time, you can actually do so to define a custom class. To define a custom class for this, you can just do something called this. You can do width of 50%. And this will give us our navigation bar is going to be 50% width, basically. But you know that we are not going to be styling this over and over again. So this is just our navigation actually covers a full width on our screen. So we just give it width full. And let's save that and see what we have. Let's check out our design. So once I make this responsive, you can see that it works perfectly well. But we have not gotten to this point yet on our own design. So let's continue. I just wanted to show you that so you have an idea of what I'm going to be working with. So I have also a Z index. I have a Z index of 50. We know what Z index is. I have a background of gray, DG gray dash 900. And also have an opacity of 80. With an opacity of 80, I have a border bottom. So there's sort of like a border bottom. You can see a straight line right there. There's a border bottom of border dash B. And we have border dash gray dash 800. So that's the first one. So we have a div right here. I'm also going to give this a class. of max-w-7xl. So I don't know why my Tailwind intelligence is not working. There's something called Tailwind intelligence. By the time you are writing your Tailwind style, it pops up different kinds of styles. It works very well for me when I'm writing React, but I don't know why it's not working very well right here. It gives you like some sort of suggestions basically on what you can do next on your script. Next, like, okay, you're trying to write with. By the time you're writing your Tailwind intelligence already kicks off and is telling you, oh, this is the next thing you're going to write. And it's more like an AI machine, but it's not AI, but for Tailwind CSS, basically. All the stuff Tailwind CSS has. Or you can just select by either scroll or not. So let's continue. I have an MX Auto, which is giving it a margin to the right, a margin to the left of X PX-4, padding left and padding to the right of 4. I'm sure we can still remember that from Bootstrap. When we talk about padding, can someone tell me what PX means in Bootstrap? So that's it's trying to can anyone hear me? Yeah, George, go ahead.
It means padding on the x-axis.
Sorry, can anyone hear me?
Just
Yes, sir.
cracking.
Hear me. But I get what you're trying to I get what you're trying to say. On left and right. That's basically what MX simply means. For MY means to the left, that's the top. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I think my network just went off a bit. So, but I'm back now. Can you all hear me?
So your voice is cracking. I can barely hear you.
Can you all hear me, please? Can you hear me clearly now?
No, sir.
Hello? Alan, can you transfer the host to me, please? Alan, can you all hear me? More.
Yes,
Yes,
I
sir, we
can.
can
I
hear
can
you,
hear
though
you.
it's cracking a bit, but we can hear you.
My network is cracking. Okay. All right. I'm so sorry. MTN is trying to MTN is trying to play best one on me this morning, but we will not make them prevail. So let's continue.
Sir, your voice is still breaking, sir.
So, Helen, I made mention of you transferring the hosts and handle the recording properly. We left off this before. So sorry, guys, my network kicked me out again for the second time. But let's continue. Please kindly confirm you can hear me. Kindly confirm you can hear me, please.
Sir,
We
it's
can hear you,
still
sir, but your
cracking.
voice is cracking.
Kindly confirm you can hear me. My voice is cracking. Wow. Is it better now?
Still
I
cracking.
think we just have to go ahead with that. And anytime my network is now stable, I would do it. We just work with that. So Harlan, I'm making you it's so we are actually just defining our large screen. This is our large screen, and large screen we are going to give it a padding to the left and right of 8 pixel, and that's done with that. So now we want to define our navigation itself. So I have a class of flex, justify center, justify between. So can you hear me clearly now? Am I clear enough? I think I've switched my network. Is it better? Very good.
Much
So I just
better.
switched my network. I just switched my network, guys. I'm so sorry. So let me share my screen once again. So let's continue from where we stopped, which is I was trying to define our navigation in itself, which is giving us a justify content. So the nav is going to be justify content. Justify between, rather, I said justify content. Justify between. So we can just check that out. We can check justify. Can just check we can check flexbox. So we can check justify self. We can check justify between. So instead of that, I can just do this. You can see I have my different gaps. I can just click on justify content. And I have justify start, justify end, justify center, justify between. Justify between is simply justify space between. Justify around is justify space around. And as you can see, it gives you option on how you can use them on the screen. So you're not lost, basically. So, well, Temi Tokwe, I'm not using Airtel actually. I actually switched to a fiber one cable. I actually use a cable network. So I actually switch between MTN and a cable network. So I don't know, maybe it's Starlink, Allen. So what of Pixel? Well, Tailwind does not work with Pixel actually. Tailwind does not work with Pixel. Tailwind actually work with REM, not Pixel. If we try to explore Tailwind very well, Tailwind actually works with REM, not Pixel. But you can see I have a PX6, and if I hover on this PX6, now let's go to Tailwind documentation and search for padding. And when we see a PS6, see what a PS6 is. A PX6, which is margin to the left and to the right of 6, that is 1.5 rem. Is that Nancy? Is that Nancy that was okay? Nancy, you were asking about rem, pixel, but as you can see, Tailwind actually works with what's the name? Rem, basically. So our PS6 is actually 1.5 rem, basically. Our PS6 is actually 1.5 rem, basically. So you don't need to, another thing is you don't need to do the calculation in your head. Once you see it on your Figma design or any style guide you're working with, you just automatically have to bring it to just have to look through your Tailwind documentation and see which style actually fits very well for you to use. I think I also have Daniel Chris. Is Daniel Chris on this call? Oh, Daniel is not on this call. I thought Daniel was on this call. So that's Nancy. Are you clear on that? Nancy, are you clear on that?
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah. So let's continue. So we have our justify between, and I have my item center, items by center. So this is just reinforcing what Tailwind simply does is reinforcing what you know on your normal vanilla CSS. Basically, that's what it does. Nothing too spectacular, but it's just trying to, okay, instead of you writing your custom CSS in another style sheet of style.css, you can write everything in your HTML and you are all good to go. Basically, that is what Tailwind is for. And we can continue. So now we are going to be defining our logo. So now Joshua, why do you want to use both Tailwind and Bootstrap together? You are going to be conflicting yourself because when your Bootstrap style and Tailwind class name are very, very similar. So now let's say for Bootstrap, they have PX1 to 5, but Bootstrap has PX1 to 5. Tailwind has up to PS60 or P90. If you can see it got to 96. So that's why most modern development now has actually dumped Bootstrap for CSS. Basically, they have actually dumped Bootstrap for CSS, and you can't blame them because Bootstrap is already going extinct. I will tell you, in 10 applications you will see out there for front-end developer rules, you would only see, you might not see anyone that will tell you to have knowledge of Bootstrap, but everyone you are going to see will tell you to have knowledge of Tailwind CSS. Every one of them, I can tell you 90.9% of it would tell you that knowledge of Tailwind CSS is a plus. Bootstrap can just be knowledge, basically. That's just it. So let's continue. So for our H1, so we don't have a logo. Well, I gave you a tax on Bootstrap, not Tailwind CSS. I gave you a tax on Bootstrap, not Tailwind CSS. So don't mix it up. So let's continue. So I have a flex, a div right here, and I'm going to be using a class of flex, and I have items that is center, and I have an H1. I have another div right here. So on a small screen, it's actually going to shrink. So I have a class of flex shrink. So it's going to reduce it when it gets to a smaller screen. Flex shrink like 0, and I have our H1, which is going to be next flow rather, not next flow. So let's now dive into this. We have a class of text dash. So our text size. So let's check what we have for our text size right here. Let's inspect this style. You can also inspect your style. So let's check what we have on this. Let me inspect the element one after the other. So for our next flow, for our H1, you can also see that our flex, our navigation has an height of 16. So you can see that I don't even need to, I can just check our style here, and you can see our height is 4M. Of H16, it is 4M. So I come back here and I do H16, H-4, H16. So that's 4M. And for our next flow, our H1 text in itself, what am I going to do? The first thing we are simply going to do is, I have a message here. So let's continue. So we have our text of 2, that's like 4M. So let's give it 2 XL. So let's go to our font size in Tailwind. So let's go to text size. Take that size. Text font size. Let's go to font size instead, not text size. Font size. Font size. So this is font size, and you can see we have different kind of font size. So we have our font size is going to be 1.5 rem, which is Tailwind text dash 2 XL. And you can see you have different kind of font sizes. And if the font size you want is not defined, you can actually define a font size for yourself, basically. So same thing I'm also going to do as you can see in Bootstrap, we have a font of bold. So we want to make it bold. We are now going to use same thing we now did in Bootstrap. You can see in Bootstrap, when we wanted to do this kind of color that is actually flowing from left to right, we actually did it in our custom CSS. But in Tailwind CSS, you can actually do it directly on this without using any custom CSS. So what you simply have to do is you do a bg dash gradient dash to right to dash r. So that's simply what you have to do. And the first thing is going to do from dash blue dash 400 to purple, to dash purple. I didn't get the spelling of purple correctly. Purple dash 600, which is going to be a bg dash clip dash text. So this that we're writing separately in our previous CSS, that we're writing like 6 different kinds of, we're writing 4 different kinds of code combined all together. You can see we are just doing it in a straight line, reducing the number of of text we are writing. Transparent, and want to save this and go back to what we have. As you can see, we have our next flow, and it looks very simple to write. But if it was actually with normal CSS, I can tell you this thing that these small lines of code that we just wrote would have gone into something much more than this line of code, basically. But with the help of Tailwind, we have actually reduced it to just 19 lines. But if we're doing it with normal CSS, we'll have gone into normal CSS, written it, now switching pages, now switching from one page to another, making it kind of tiring. Having me to divide when we're working with normal CSS, having to divide my screen into two, trying, okay, which class am I writing on, which class, so I don't miss my class spelling. You can see that this makes it very, very easy to do than using than using two different style sheets. Do you guys understand it so far? Are we understanding it, guys? Is it making sense? I want to hear from you guys. Is it making sense?
No, sir.
Tailwind is not making sense.
You are not explaining the terms. Like, I was thinking you'll be explaining it so that it
Okay.
would be more understanding.
Okay. Let me explain the terms I just used. Let me explain everything. So from the background, Ahmed, I said always mute your mic. So from the body, I'm using a background of gray of 900. Basically, that's what I'm using. A background gray of 900. A background gray of 900 and a text white. That means our text is going to be white, basically, according to what we have on our screen. So we have given this, like, as we always do in our Tailwind, in our external CSS, what we simply have to do is we define like a general style. So the first thing I simply did was define our background color for our whole body, which is a background of gray of 900, which is a very deep gray color, and I gave it a text of white. Then for our navigation, according to what we have on the design we are working with, it is fixed, basically. Simply saying that every style that we are working with has to go, when we are scrolling, the position of our navigation bar is always fixed. It does not move. That is why I used a fixed, and I gave it a top of 0 and a width full. That is a width of 100% and a z-index. What does a z-index do? A z-index is push that particular element outside above every other element. That's what a z-index does. If you understand it in normal CSS, the normal custom CSS, if you understand it from the normal custom CSS, you would actually understand what I'm writing, basically. So as you can see, I also gave it instead of me defining a border bottom, I gave it with Tailwind, I just defined a border B. This simply means as border bottom. And I want to give our border a color. I gave it a border gray of 800. That means a thick version of our, I'm sorry, I don't know why my Tailwind intelligence is not working, basically. I don't know why my Tailwind intelligence is not working. Once I hover on it, it's supposed to actually pop up like the particular color code for this. But you can actually check it out. Let's check. We can actually check this out check it out when we inspect. So let me try to inspect this, and as you can see our BG900 is actually a color code of 101828. That is simply the color code for what we are using for our BG our background color of 800, of 900 rather. So if we check the one that is 800, so this, our navigation itself, background 800, which is this, as you can see, that is the color basically. So I'm not doing anything different from the normal Tailwind CSS, and I'm also using a max width. So I'm using a max width of 7. I'm using a max width of 7XL. Let's check out what 7XL means. Max width. So we come right here, max width of 7XL. That is 800 rem. So that means our navigation is simply 800 rem. When we look at it on a very large screen, according to what we have here, when you look at it on a very large screen, it is 800 rem basically. And it has a margin to the left and to the right. That is why I'm having a PX of 4. And on a small screen, when it gets to a smaller screen, it has a PX of 6. And when it's on a large screen, it has a PX of 8. Oro Nancy, do you understand the basic style I just explained? This is just normal Tailwind. This is just normal CSS, but in a short form. Nancy, do you understand?
I totally understand from the nav bar to the div class, which
Okay.
you wrote flex shrink. But what I don't understand is the H1 class.
The H1 class. The H1
Yes.
is simply okay, what does BG gray 800 means? Okay, what BG gray 800 means is that give it a background color of gray 900, then an opacity of 80. The 80 there means an opacity is actually an opacity of 80. Just give it, let it not be too dark. Let it be like a lightning, this thing there. That's what it simply means. So for the H1 is simply a class. I'm sure you know of H1 text heading in HTML. And the class,
Yes.
I'm giving it
Yes.
a 1.5 rem. That means my font size is actually 1.5 rem. That is 2XL. According to Tailwind, basically. So let's go to our font size. We want to define a font size. Basically, we have font size. For our font size, you can see we have different kind of font size. We have, if I give it XL is 1.25 rem. And when I give it 2XL, that is 1.5 rem. If I give it 3XL, that is 1.875 rem. So it has different sizes. So I'm giving it a font size of 1.5 rem, that is 2XL. I want to make it bold. You know, in normal Tailwind CSS, in normal CSS, you have to do font width of bold, font width of italics. So for me to, okay, I want to make this a font width bold. That is, I want to make the font width of this bold. So that's what I simply did. I gave it a font width of bold, and I want to give it this unique color that we have right there. So the unique color I simply did was I gave it a background color, let me clear out this transparent. I wish I can open the other code which we did something similar to this. So you can see now that when I gave it a background color of BG background gradient to right, what I'm simply saying that, okay, I want to combine two colors together from the right to the left. That means you can see that our background color is from blue. Sorry. Our background color is from blue to purple. So it's like a blend of two different colors. So it starts from blue and ends in purple. That is what the background color is. But for us not to, if it's like this, you're not going to see the beauty of the background color. So it just makes it look, okay, our text is still white. Our text is basically white. But we want to make this background color, we don't want to have it at the back right here. We want it to be as if we actually used it as a logo. That's why I have the BG clip. So what the BG clip simply does is it clips the text and the background color together and makes the text transparent. So let me clear this text transparent. And makes the text transparent so that the text, the color, the background color we give to it can show properly. If you can go back to the previous class or when I did something similar to this, I think was it in the grid class I recorded? No, not the grid. Was it in the responsive class I recorded? Or I know I've done it in a live class and I also did it in one of the recordings we did. So you can check it out in both of the, you can see that we did something similar to this. And there, what I simply had to do there was I defined a background color, I did a text clip of clip, and I now did a text transparent. So with this, I'm doing it just on a straight line. And you can see that with the text of transparent, the white color is now transparent. That means the white color is totally gone. When you make something something transparent, that means the color that is at the background color of blue and purple that we gave to it is actually at the background. But we now make the text itself transparent so that the background color can show on it. Do you understand now, Nancy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, sir, why can we use one flex property on all the div? Yeah, you can actually use one flex property on all the div, but you know me, when I try to define my style one after the other so that if someone is reading my code, they can easily understand it. That's why I actually use a flexible div. That's why I use two different divs, basically. I can actually do everything in one single line and it's still going to work the same way it does. But for me, I try to do like a lot of separation of concerns. That if you see my code, you will see that I do div one after the other, div one after the other. It makes my divs plenty, but it's actually readable when I do it. So, George, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Okay, I think you've answered the question because I wanted to ask like, how do we determine the amount of divs we use?
Oh,
Because
it's
this
based
div
on
is
your personal
separated
preference.
each.
Yeah, it's based on your personal preference, actually.
Okay, so you
So
mean
that
all
you
these?
yes.
I say you mean all these styles can actually be in just one div.
Yeah, for a particular element. Okay, let's say now you want to style this one. You can just use a single div. You can actually just use a single div, something like this. Coming, you can just do something like this. Instead of having this flex shrink on another div, you can just cut this one out. You can just cut it out and paste it right here. And I delete this div that is here. Once I delete this div, once I delete this other div, it still works the normal way it's going to be. So I'm just the one trying to define different kind of styles across board. Nothing too serious about it. So George, do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
All right. Yeah, Olatubo Solani, go ahead.
So, sir, based on what George asked, sir, so for this now, can we use just two divs? That is
Well,
one
you can see
for.
that. No, you can't use two divs. You can't just use two divs. So now look at the progression. Look at the progression of what I have. Let's look at the progression very well. So this is our main navigation. This is like the main navigation, which is this session, basically, this whole session from left to right. That's one that has the Z index. And this div of max width is actually from this next flow. It's like a container inside the nav is actually the major container. Then the first div is the other container. Then we now have a container again that is now going to hold the navigation. So let me use the main thing that we're working with. So the nav is this whole container, the whole container from left to right. Then the div is what gives us this margin to the left and margin to the right of MX auto. Then we have a flex. This is holding this, our logo. This particular div on line 17 is actually the one that is going to hold our logo, our navigation, and our buttons. So, but for our H1 text, basically, for our logo, we have it inside this particular div. We have it inside this particular div. And if I now want to define our navigations, I'm not going to do it inside the H1 div. I'm going to come out of the div practically and define a new div for that. I'm actually going to define a new div for that. And that's what I've simply done. So there are going to be 3 different divs, basically. The main div, the sub div, and the other div that is going to hold the elements together. That's how it's going to be. Do you understand? Did I explain it enough? Are you clear with that?
Yes, I understand, sir. But
Okay,
I'm just looking at the way the div was arranged before, but I just
so you can see, George, you can see I just turned on my pesticide, and you can see that there is a div inside another div inside another div. So it's not that if you try to define all those styles on one div, your code is never going to be readable. So you have to be, that's why I say that's why I made mention in our earlier class before going into CSS. I made mention of saying that before you try to dive into creating anything, what you simply have to do is you have to look at how your style basically looks like, how your layout simply look like before you start diving into it. It's not just having to, okay, this is how it looks like, you just dive into it directly. No, you have to pick it one after the other before you can dive inside. So you can see that I took a different progression. When I defined our nav, I defined a div, and the main div is now going to hold our navigation itself. I now defined it separately. Again, that's where, and I can simply do everything on this second div that we have, but it's going to make it too cumbersome and too long. That's why I didn't do it on it. That's how to do some separation of concerns, basically. Do you understand? Is it clear? God, I'm kind of
very
all right. So let's continue. Let's now style our navigation. Let's now style our navigation in itself. So now for our navigation, I am doing something called I'm doing something called the mobile first approach, which is on a small screen, on a large screen rather, it is going to be hidden. Our navigation is going to be hidden on a large screen. But when we get to a medium screen, it's going to be seen, which is going to be a block. So that's simply when you do something in normal CSS art, display of hidden and display of block, that is simply what this is doing, basically. Where do you want to put it? So that is what this does, basically. You are just defining a display of hidden and a display of block on both of them. So on large screen, tell it to be hidden, and when it gets to a larger screen, you are saying, okay, let my navigation be shown on a large screen. That's basically what I did on that line. So I now want to define our navigation itself, which is going to be a div. I'm giving it a class of margin left, and my margin left is simply ML-10. And if we go to this again, if we go to Tailwind and we have a margin and we check for margin, and you can see margin left. Let's scroll down. I'm coming. Let's just scroll down a bit. So this margin right, can see margin bottom, margin left. Where are you? Can see margin left of 10 is 2.5 rem. So I'm giving it a margin left 2.5 rem, basically. So let's continue. With margin left 2.5 rem. I'm giving it a flex, so I'm flexing it. I'm also giving it an item. Flex and items of baseline. I'm giving it a space of X. So instead of me defining a space between and all, to define a space between elements in Tailwind CSS, there's also something called space of X. So let's check it. Let's check what this means. Space X. Yeah, you can see where you are trying to define, instead of you using gap, instead of you trying to use gap, which we use normally, you can also use gap. Instead of you trying to use gap, we don't want to use gap. This is also another approach, which is space between each of the elements. That's space to the right and space to the left. You can do X, space X, that means to the horizontal axis and to the vertical axis. That is what space X does. Instead of me giving it a gap, I'm giving it a space X of dash space X dash 8. And we have, that's what we have, and that is done. So we have our A tag. We have our normal A tag, which is going to be href. So I'm sure everybody is familiar with this. We have our hash of feature. And we have our class. And the first thing we have to do is we have an over, which is a normal over effect that we have with, our normal text. The color we're actually using is actually, if we check what we have right here, the text we are actually using, our text is actually white, but when your mouse is on it, it becomes what? It becomes blue in color. So that's what I'm simply achieving right here with the over effect. Instead of you trying to define a before and after. So in Tailwind CSS, you don't need to start defining a before and after. What you simply have to do is just define the over effect, and with over, I'm doing it like a text dash blue dash 400, and I'm having a transition dash colors and duration dash 300. So as you can see, this makes it much more easier and flexible to read than when we are using our normal CSS. When I'm using a normal CSS, I first have to define the before, after, then now start defining your animation on its own. So you can see that everything are all done in one straight line. Yeah, Bootstrap has over effect, but well, I only use Bootstrap for teaching purposes. I don't use Bootstrap when it comes to my day-to-day activities. So I think it might have, there might be something like that, but I've not explored it to that extent. So I use Tailwind, like I told you, since 2023 now, going to 2 years plus, going close to 2 years plus now, I've actually just been making use of Tailwind. Tailwind is life. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club of using Tailwind. And I also want you, Tailwind is the GOAT. Forget anybody, Ronaldo is the GOAT. Yeah. Tailwind is, Bootstrap is Messi. You can go ahead, you can argue in the chat box. So let's continue.
Hello. I can't hear anything, sir. If you are still speaking, sir.
Yeah, so sorry, guys. So sorry. So I'm back again. So sorry, network. So let's continue. So we have done that. So I'm just going to replicate I'm just going to replicate, like I'm just going to duplicate. So I'm just going to duplicate these lines and just change and just have a feature. The first one is feature. The next one is price. Next one is price. Next one is pricing rather. And we have a price. Pricing. We have testimonial. We have testimonial. Let me make it small letter testimonials. Testimonials. We have testimonials here also. We have contacts. So we also have contacts here. And yeah, I think we are done with that. So those are just the 4 navigations that we have. So let's save and see what we have. Let's save and see what we have. As you can see, with just how many lines we are done with our navigation. But if it comes to normal CSS, we can finish the header today. We can't finish the whole page today. We can't finish, but we can finish the header and probably the hero session somewhat. Yeah, so that's Olani Olatibo, so your hand is raised. You don't have to answer questions, and I can't just be running through it just like that. Olani Olatibo, so go ahead.
Okay, sir. Sir, sorry. You said this number now that we have for the mobile screen we have hidden.
Yes.
Why for the medium screen we have it should be displayed as blue. But how do we know that this is mobile? How do we know that the mobile is hidden from this class? You know,
So
for the
you know
now.
that Tailwind CSS is a mobile first approach. So if you define something as hidden, any class you define as hidden goes to the mobile screen first of all. It targets the mobile screen first of all, basically. Then the next thing you define with the MD, you define it as the medium screen. So there are 3 different kinds of screen in Tailwind CSS. One, the small screen, the medium screen, the large screen, and the 2XL screen, extra large screen. So once you define something first in Tailwind, the way Tailwind is configured, it automatically believes that this is for small screen. So if I toggle this to a small screen on our using my mobile simulator, you can see that our navigation is hidden. Our navigation is simply hidden, but when I toggle it out, you can see it shows. That's simply what Tailwind does. The first style you are defining to Tailwind is following the mobile first approach. So when you now want to now define it, you can now define it as okay. For the MD, which is the medium screen, it does what? It moves to block. Then if you want a large screen, if on a larger screen, like when I want to make the light on a large screen, if I do on a large screen, I want to hide it again. I just have to do this, hidden. And it is hidden on a large screen. Because on a medium screen, that is like on tablets, basically. It's going to be visible on a tablet. But on a large screen, like what I have here, is actually a large screen. It's actually going to be hidden. So do you understand now, Olatibosun?
Yes, I'm very.
Yeah, so let's continue. So we are now styling our buttons next. So let's style our button. You can't see the navigation on this thing. If you zoom in, you can't see the navigation because I've hidden it. You won't see it because it's hidden. No, you can't see. Once you have done something hidden, it is taken away from the flow of the object, actually, basically. If Tailwind is mobile first approach, what of Bootstrap? is also mobile first approach. Allen is also mobile first approach, but the only thing that is there is the flexibility is what is different. So Bootstrap is rigid, but Tailwind is flexible. So yeah, you just do diff or none. So why do I have to do diff or none when I can just do display of hidden? That's it. So now let's now style our button. So let's now also style our button. So we have another div, and also on a mobile screen, we have a class of hidden, and we have MD of flex. So we have flex, we have items, center, that's the center, and we have a space dash x dash 4. So a gap of 4. So we have our button. So I'm going to use a button. So I'm going to give it a class name. What am I having? PX, that's padding to the right and to the left of 4. PX, PY, that's padding to the top and bottom of 2. I'm going to give it a text small, which is 0 point something rem. Text small, I'm going to give it a font of medium. Font of medium. You also know that you have to be careful of your text when you're writing. So we have a text of white. So I don't need to define this text of white, but just to define it, we have a text of white. You can see we also have a border. So have a border of dash gray dash 600. We have, so now you want to give it you want to have a rounded border. So you want to give it a border radius, as we do in normal CSS. You do border radius of something pixel. So, but for Tailwind CSS, what you simply have to do, you just have to do rounded dash LG. So it gives you a certain rounded size. It gives you a certain rounded size. So let's go to Tailwind CSS documentation and check for border radius. So we have border radius. So you can see rounded SM, rounded LG is 0.5 rem, and you can define as many as you want. So if you just want a certain side to be rounded, you can see how it looks right here. So that's what we have, and we would continue. Let's continue. At least if we can finish the navigation and also the mobile screen. If we can finish the mobile screen at this point, yeah, let's just finish the navigation first of all. So where are we? So let's continue. So the first one is rounded LG. We have an over. We have an over of BG dash gray dash 800. We have a transition or dash or and duration of 300. So, and we have the sign in. So we also have our other button. So we have button, so which is going to be our get started button. We have a class. So let me just copy some of the class we have right here. So let me copy to this point of text white. Let me copy this. So I don't have to start writing that, since there are some similar class. So we have text white, and we have our BG. So I've done this. So let me just copy this from this part. Let me copy this from this part and paste it right here. Control C, and let me paste it here. So you can see that this is also quite easy to do. So I have a rounded dash LG, and I have an over effect over from blue dash 600 from blue dash. There has to be a dash there. So over to the purple 700. So dash purple dash 700, and we have transition all. We have transition all and duration of 300. So let's save that. Oh no, let me have the get started right there. Get started. So let's see. We have this, and let's see what we have. And as you can see, we are done with our navigation. But the only thing we now have to do is, so on a mobile screen, we have to show something. On a mobile screen, we simply have to show something that, oh, this is working. That, okay, instead of showing our navigation, we just have to show something that there is something there that is like a navigation right there. So we just have a div, and we have class MD hidden. So it's only going to be hidden on a tablet screen. So we have a button. We have a button, and we have a class of text dash gray dash 300, and we have an over of text dash white. So, and we have the SVG. So it's just going to be an SVG icon that is simply going to show on a mobile screen. That's like an hamburger menu. Same thing for the way Bootstrap is actually going to work. The sign in is a button. Sign in. Oh, sorry, I didn't give the sign in a button. The sign in has a button now. Are you saying I didn't give the sign in a border? I gave it a border now. Oh, sorry. I didn't give it a border. I just gave it a border color, which is not the same. I just gave it a border color. Thank you for that, for bringing that to my notice, George. I only gave it a border color, but I didn't give it. No, the sign in has a border color, but I didn't define the border. That's why it was like that. So thank you, Joy, for bringing that to my notice. But the second one does not have a border. It just has like a. So let's now see. So when we reduce this, excuse me. So when we reduce this to a mobile screen, you can see that it simply shows. But we can't click on it to show our navigation. Why can't we do that? Simply because we need a JavaScript simulate. We need JavaScript to be able to simulate it that, okay, you open and close at the click of this button, you open, and when it's clicked on upon, also it is closed. That is the difference why it's not going to open, but everything works as it should be. Basically, that means on mobile screen, on a mobile phone rather, show the hamburger menu, and on a large screen, show the navigation itself, and we are good to go. Do you understand this? Does this look very interesting? Should I allow you guys explore Tailwind CSS in your assignment? I should just edit it that you make use of either Bootstrap or Tailwind CSS. Should I? Should I?
Let's work with Bootstrap first. The next one will be Tailwind.
Well, okay, no problem. No, I'm not saying that you should. You can pick either one, either Tailwind or Bootstrap. So in the next task I'm going to give you, by the next task I'm going to give you, is going to be comprising of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I want you to work around the three of them. So it's like a compounding knowledge. So at this point, I can tell you, okay, you can either use Tailwind or Bootstrap. I'll have to speak to IK. I have to speak to IKs first. I have to speak to the management of KodeCamp to be sure that, okay, can I edit my assignment so that they can either use Tailwind or Bootstrap? So if they accept, I will do that. But if not, we will just stick with Bootstrap. But in the next task, which I'll probably give you, in the next class, I'll probably give you, I'll actually specify that you make use of Tailwind, HTML, CSS, Tailwind, and JavaScript to work on something. Yeah, so I think we are done with the navigation bar. And let's now go to what? Let's now go to our hero session. So let's now go to our hero session. So for the hero session, you can see that for the hero session, we have some little bit of animation that is bouncing around here. So I'm going to do that with Tailwind CSS. So let's continue. So I hope in the next 30 minutes, I can be done with this. But let's see how far we can go. Let's see how far we can go. So let's see how far we can go with this. So we have a session. So I'm going to use a section which I'm going to give it a class of relative. So I told you previously that if you want to make use of class, absolute class, and this thing, you have to use the parent container has to be relative. The parent container has to be relative. So I'm giving the parent container of our hero session a relative position, relative. And we have our, so now this is now me defining that, okay, for the view height of our hero session, it should be the screen size, which is going to be mean of dash screen. So instead of me defining 100 VH, I'm just defining that, okay, the screen has to be 100. It has to be, for you to view it, it has to be the height of the screen, basically. So as long as I can see anything on my screen, our hero session is actually going to cover it up. So you can see that our hero session actually covers, no matter the size of our screen, our hero session is actually covered from top to bottom. That's what the each minimum of screen, height of screen. That's simply what it means. So let's continue. So the next thing I have is a flex. So I'm just going to use a flex item center, items the center. I'm also going to have justify content center. So everything is going to be aligned to the center, justify the center. I'm going to have a BG, same thing I did before, BG dash gradient dash to bottom right. That's BR. BR simply means bottom right. From gray, that's actually what I'm going to do. From dash gray dash 900 via, so you can use multiple colors, via purple dash 900 to dash gray dash 900. So that's for the session. So for this bouncing stuff that is behind this thing, that's what I'm going to be working on now. For those bouncing animations, so I'm just going to have a div. I'm going to call it a class of absolute. Class absolute. I'm going to give it insert dash 0 of BD dash black dash 20, not slash 20, sorry. So that's like, I'm giving it an overlay, a black overlay. That's simply, if you look at this properly, you see like there's something like black overlaying on it. So let's now have the animation div of class absolute top dash 20. We have left, so for this, so left of 20, left dash 20, we have a width of 72 and height a W2 of 72, that height of 72. So let's check what height and width of 72 means on Tailwind CSS. So let's define the width IDTH. When we say width of 72, what is it saying? That's 18 rem. Also, height of 72 means 18 rem also. Height of 72 also means 18 rem. So let's check that out. Height of 72 also means 18 rem. So we are good to go. So for the color, so let me put this on the screen so I can. So we have each of 72. We have a BG dash purple dash 500/20. So purple 500 and an opacity of 20. So we have a rounded full. So we are making it rounded full. Rounded dash full. And we have make animate dash pulse. So that's the animation. As you can see, it goes in and goes out like a pulse. That's the animation of that. That's what it does. So the next one is going to be a div. So let me copy some of the styles right here. It's just the animation that is changing basically, and also the positioning. So we have an absolute of 20, an absolute and a bottom of 20. Bottom, this is going to be bottom of 20, and we have, instead of left, we have it to the right because it's on the right hand side. Right. We have a width of 96. You can see the blue one is actually bigger. That's 96. And we have a width of also 96. 96. So we are also going to change the background color from blue 520 purple. Why is my purple? I didn't spell the purple very well, and nobody made mention of it to me. So purple. So we have blue 500. We have blue 520. Rounded, full, and animate, or instead of pulse, we have it bounce, bounce. And the next one is going to be this. So let me just duplicate this. So the animation of the next one is going to be a spin. The animation is spin. And we have a rounded full. We have a pink 500. Pink. And we have width of 64. Height of 64. 64. We have a translate. We have a top. Let me clear all this. I think I have to add more things here. We have a top dash 1/2. We have a left of dash 1/2. We have a transform dash translate. That's, I put a dash in front of it because that's a minus. Translate dash x dash 1/2 and translate y. Translate y, that's dash 1/2. So that is done. So I don't think it will show. Okay, you can see it's already showing how we want it, basically, as we can see. So I think there is, okay, I didn't spell this purple very well. That's why. I don't know why I always put U in my purple. So let's save this and see. It gives us the accurate way it looks like right here, as we can all see. So does this look easy? Does it look something that, okay, is this something you would always want to try out? Tailwind is actually making sense, and I can tell you I will say it again, I have not used anything. I've not used anything aside Tailwind CSS. I've not even custom CSS. I'll tell you, in like 2 years, the first custom CSS I'm writing is only when I teach. That's in KodeCamp 4.0, KodeCamp 4.0, and KodeCamp 5.0. That's the only time, and other places I teach. That's it. But for personal work use, I use Tailwind CSS. No, you're not forgetting CSS because you're simply writing CSS, but in shorter version. That's just it. My phone. Because we're using iPhone. Gosh. I don't think. So you're not forgetting CSS actually. You are actually working with CSS, just in a shorter form. That's it. So it's also, that's why you can see that it's easier for me to remember some of the Tailwind stuff. So it's easier for me to write Tailwind because I know CSS very well. Because if I'm to write CSS now, I'm still going to be writing it in form of Tailwind of CSS. I'm still going to be writing it in the form of Tailwind instead of me writing it as CSS. But I know if I make the mistake 1-2 times, I'm going to. If you also notice, when we're talking about CSS in class, I was actually switching a bit between using the classes of Tailwind CSS instead of me writing normal CSS. So that's it. So let's continue. We have fixed the animation behind the screen, and that is working fine already. So let's now style our other sessions. Let's now start our other session, which is going to be div. And I think I should finish this in the next 20 minutes, 10 minutes. We have a class of relative. We have a z-index of 10. We have a text dash center. We have a px-4. We have an sm, that is for small, px-6. We have a py. We have a px and also lg of px-8. We have a max-w-5xl, and we have an mx-auto. So I have a message here. So if you would recommend that we use, so if you have resources that you can recommend to help us amateurs to understand fundamentals of Tailwind. Well, for me, I will tell you, for me, I didn't really sit down to learn Tailwind CSS. Actually, I didn't sit down, like I didn't go to any material, and I can say it. I've not gone to any material or this thing. Maybe I want to do something on Tailwind CSS. I want to do something on Tailwind CSS, and I just stumbled on a YouTube video. But me practically sitting down to understand Tailwind CSS, I've not actually gone through any material sort of, because what I simply do is I understand the CSS part of it. When I understand the CSS part of it, what I simply want to do next is I just convert it into the style itself. So just read the documentation. Like I've always said, for all these frameworks, the best thing you just have to do is just read the documentation. And once you read the documentation, you are 70% ready to go. But there are some things that you might not have done before that you want to do what? You might just want to consult YouTube tutorials and stuff like this. So that's just it. The first time I was going to do animation with Tailwind CSS, I actually had to consult YouTube videos. And I'll say it, as a developer, watching YouTube is always your second nature. That's just it. So let's just have that at the back of our mind. Okay, let's continue. I want to finish this. At least if I finish, well, for me, I don't use ChatGPT actually. I use other AI too, but I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use ChatGPT simply because ChatGPT does not give me what I want. ChatGPT does not give me what I want. I'm not going to tell you. You figure out the AI tool you're going to use yourself. Yeah, I use so many AI tools actually. I use so many AI tools basically. So not just one. I combine 2-3 AI tools together. And my company is benevolent enough to give me something called Copilot. So sometimes I worry majorly on functionalities all of the time. So that's it. So let's continue. We have defined this, and let's now define our H1. H1. So we have a class of text-5XL. We have our SM of text-6SL. We have our LG of text-7XL. I have a font-bold, MB, that's margin bottom of 8. We have an animation, animate, fade in and fade out. Animate dash fade dash in. So that's for our H1. So I have the first one is the future. The future of, we have a span. So for this workflow, which is actually going to be different, it's styled differently actually. So it's a span, and I'm just going to copy this text. Let me just copy the text right here. Let me just copy this text and paste it right here. Let me paste this right here and see what we have on our screen. So as you can see, this is what we have, but let me style this to fit what it looks like on our screen right now. So we have a class of block, because we know span is an inline element, so it has to take up a full width. We have text that transparent. We have bg clip, bg dash clip dash text. We have bg to the right, b gradient to the right, and we have from blue 400 to purple 600. So I think that gives me what I want. So as you can see, it automatically gives me what I want. And yes, we are good. That's how short it can be working with Tailwind CSS. So let me just run through the other session, which is the session below it. So let me just run through this. Streamline your processes and all. So that's just like a p-text. Let me just have our p-text right there below this. Let me have our p-text. We have our p-text, and let me copy the text from here. Let me simply copy the text and paste it right here. Paste it right here, and we have a class. We have a class of text-XL. We have on SM, we have 2XL. We have text-2XL. We have text-gray-300. We have MB-12, that's margin bottom 12. We have MX max-W-3XL, and we have MX-auto. So let's save and see what we have. We have gotten what we want, and to be honest, it's very, I can go on and on. That's why I said we can go on and on and on and on like that. And I think because of Tailwind CSS, I actually built my personal portfolio website in 9 hours. Yeah, I think that's still one of the records I've actually broken for myself. I built with full animation and the likes. I built it with not full animation, minor animation. I built between 8 to 9 hours. And yeah, that's how, if I was actually writing external style sheets, it was going to be difficult. But with the help of Tailwind CSS, it's actually helping me. And to be honest, that's it. Does anyone have any question? We'll draw the curtain on it today, and I'll find a way of completing this. I'll find a way of completing this and send the video across. So, does anyone have any question? George, go ahead and ask your question.
So can you drop the link that you hosted this next flow so that we can just test and try what we next?
Let me copy the link. Let me just copy it from here right now. I'm dropping it on the chat box. Well, you can build your own in 5 hours, Alan. So, but it's fine. Appeal to, okay, I'm going to speak to IK. I'm actually going to, after this call, I'm going to speak to IK so you guys can work with Tailwind. That's just it. Because me, I prefer working with Tailwind than using normal CSS or even Bootstrap. So, but I didn't just want to put you guys to it since I've not taught you guys, but now that I've explained to you guys can actually work around it. So, that's the power of Tailwind. So, thank you very much, guys, and we'll see in the next class. And by the next class, with this, we actually draw the curtain on anything CSS. Going on from next class rather, I would ask Patrick when I've asked, I'm going to drop it I'm going to announce to you guys on the channel. So so thank you very much, guys. We'll see in the next class. Bye.